Hi y'all, it's Mindy with Living Through Chaos. I wanted to do today my first Type 1 Tuesday video. So, a little bit of backstory first before I get into what today's endocrinologist visit showed us. Our son, Finn, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes on October 16th, 2017. He was getting sick that Friday. It was Friday the 13th, and he was throwing up. He didn't feel well. He was running a fever. We thought he was possibly getting the flu, just because it was a really bad flu season this year, and that's usually what happens when a kid gets sick. It's either stomach virus or the flu or a cold or, something that they recover from very quickly. Saturday, Finn was getting worse, and I was in contact with the nurse line, and they told us that as long as he's drinking and wetting his diapers, that we could treat whatever this illness was at home. We didn't need to come in and expose him to more germs. So that's what we did. We kept giving him Pedialyte, and Sunday he started moaning when he was breathing, and we thought he was in pain. It just kind of reaffirmed the flu theory. We thought he was having body aches, and he kept getting worse. And Sunday night at about 10 o'clock, my husband got home from work, and we were laying in bed with Finn, and we noticed he was having trouble breathing. His chest was concaving, and I don't know much about medical stuff, but I know that when your chest concaves when you're breathing, that's not good. So my husband put Finn in the car seat and started to make his way to the hospital, to Denver Health. And we live about 30 minutes from Denver Health, with traffic and everything. And between my husband putting him in the car seat and getting to Denver Health, Finn slipped into a coma. He was in a coma for, depending on who you ask, 3 to 5 days. He started opening his eyes on day 3, but he wasn't focusing on things, and he didn't have any motor skills. He couldn't move his arms or legs. He didn't respond to voices. So, day 5, that's when he started responding to us and everything. When my husband got him to the hospital, they obviously brought him straight to the PICU, and they waited to give us the diagnosis until I was there. I had been on FMLA up until that point for my own reasons, which we'll probably get into in another video. And I had to take Maxon, who's our 3-year-old, to his dad because I was scheduled to return to work that day. And I didn't know that Finn was in a coma. So when I was dropping Maxon off, the doctor came out, and she told us that there was a good chance Finn wouldn't wake up. She said he was the sickest baby she had ever treated, and that they were going to do everything they could to save him. So I don't know what was going through my head. I was mostly in shock. They told us it was diabetes, and I'm getting really emotional. They told us it was diabetes. My cousin has it, and one of my very close friends growing up had it. So I knew about it. Like, I knew what it was, and I knew why it happened, and that it was autoimmune, and all the misconceptions that other people have about it I didn't have. So I went to work that morning. I dropped Mac off, and I went to work, because if I didn't return that day, I was gonna lose my job. So I don't even remember crying on the way to work. I hadn't seen my coworkers in a long time. I was on FMLA for 12 weeks. And I work for the county. We have a very small team. We have a team of about 10 people at the time. And I was working there when Finn was born. So my whole team is very invested in him. And I walked in the door early, and my admin saw me, and she asked how I was, and I just started crying, and I told her what had happened. And my boss at the time has a nephew who was diagnosed at 3, so she also knew what diabetes was, and how serious type 1 is. So she asked her boss, who asked her boss, if they could give me some time, and they gave me a week to be with Finn. So immediately I went back to the hospital, and we just sat there. Time has never moved more slowly. This video was not supposed to be me crying. When Finn went to the hospital, he was so dehydrated that they had to put in IVs into his bone because his veins were collapsing. He developed MSSA staph infection. It's like MRSA. It's antibiotic resistant. But it's not as bad as MRSA. And he developed blood clots in his legs. So instead of being there for like a week, we were there for 3. Finn was released on November 2nd from the hospital. And they sent us home with, it felt like a time bomb. Because he was 19 pounds at 16 months, and we had to check his blood sugar around the clock every 2 hours, which most type 1s, and I say most, but what you really need to take away is every type 1 is different. But checking every 2 hours is not normal. It's not what they consider, I don't even know. It's not normal. But Finn had a lot of lows. He still does. We deal with a lot of lows. He used diluted insulin, which is a controversial thing. A lot of endos won't prescribe it because they don't trust it. Our endo did prescribe it, thankfully. And we were sent home with this baby who was very sick. At our first, so once you come home, then you have an appointment a month after that. And Finn's A1C at his 1 month appointment was 7.0. Which is like amazing. Your A1C, the best way to describe it is it's an average of the last 2 to 3 months of your blood glucose and kind of where it's sitting. And his was at 7. The next appointment, it was 10, which is very bad. It's really hard to control diabetes in an infant. Control is not the right word because most doctors or endos will tell you that type 1 is not controllable. You can manage it, but it's not as easy as 10 carbs plus 1 unit of insulin equals a perfect blood glucose. Anything can affect your blood glucose. If you're excited, it can make it go high or low. If you have adrenaline, it can go high or low. If you eat fatty foods like pizza, you can't dose it the same way you dose bread. Or if you're growing, it can make your blood glucose go crazy. Everything affects it. Everything. A hot bath can make you go low. It's really, it's difficult to control. So his appointment in February, he was at 10, and the doctors weren't excited about it, but they said it was par for the course, considering he had such a low A1C at diagnosis. A lot of people will have A1Cs of like 10, 11, 12 at diagnosis because they're having elevated blood sugars for a long time before they get diagnosed. With Finn, they don't think that's the case because his A1C was so low. So his appointment in February, he was at 10. But from December to February, he gained 6 pounds and he grew a ton. I'm not sure how many inches, and I don't think I have it written down here. But he went from the 2nd percentile to like the 9th in height. Insulin helps you gain weight, because if your blood glucose is high, then you're using up the fat in your body to get rid of it. So that's why Finn was so small, because his body had to use all of his fat because his pancreas wasn't producing any insulin. We just got home, actually 2 hours ago, from his second 3-month out appointment. So it's been almost 7 months since we were diagnosed. And Finn is now on a pump. He's on the Medtronic 670G. And I'll do a video about that pump and its features and all of that, so you guys can learn about it. And he's also on a CGM, which is a continuous glucose monitor. He uses the Dexcom G5. I will do a video about that as well. But that measures, it goes on his arm, which is, it's a long story. It's not an approved site, but Finn doesn't have a lot of fat on his body yet, and the arm is the only place that it can go. So it goes on his arm, and it tells us what his blood glucose is throughout the day. If he's low, we get an alarm. If he's high, we get an alarm. And that's really helped in managing his diabetes. Today, his A1C is 8.5. And that's huge. That's a huge drop. And not only is it a huge drop, but for Finn's age, they want to see an A1C in the 8. So from 8.0 to 8.9 is what they would prefer. Everyone is recommended to have an A1C. Let me make sure I'm giving you the right data. Children are recommended to have an A1C of less than 7.5. But again, because Finn is so small, his endo told us anything in the 8s, she's really happy with. Our targets are to be in range 50% of the time. And we want less, sorry, my leg is cramping. We want less than 10% low. And we have way more than 10% low some weeks. So this week, and what my goal is for this video and every Type 1 Tuesday video is, I want to do a little bit of education, because the ignorance and misconceptions surrounding Type 1 are harmful. We've been yelled at in stores when I'm treating a low and giving my son candy. We've been yelled at for giving him shots in stores. Today, there was some issues surrounding syrup. So my goal is to educate, and then my goal is to update you guys on how Finn is doing. Because Type 1 is hard, and my family is spread out over the United States. I've got some in Wisconsin and some in North Carolina, and I really want to keep all of them in the loop, and if I get new subscribers, I want to keep you guys in the loop. So, last week, he was in range, and what in range looks like is we want him to be between 80 and 180. He was in range last week, over the last 2 weeks, 35%. The last 2 weeks, Finn has been in range 35% of the time, which obviously is below our target of 50. However, with an A1C of 8.5, he clearly has been in range a lot more than that. The A1C doesn't lie, and it's possible the Dexcom was off that, those couple weeks and we were in range more, or it's possible we were in range a lot more the weeks prior. So, yeah, I guess that's it for this video. If you have questions about type 1, please leave them in the comments and I would be happy to answer them. If I get enough questions, maybe we'll do a question and answer video for one of my Type 1 Tuesday videos. If you have comments, please leave them. It will let me know that you are watching and that I'm not just screaming into the void. And like and subscribe, share, and have a great day.
Okay.
Thanks.